Okay, here we go. Hey, welcome back, everybody. I'm Stephen Warren Hill, your host for Chicago TARDIS 2020, the virtual edition. And this time I don't have any housekeeping messages or anything to bring you, so we're going to just jump straight into this panel. The panel is 100 Years of Patrick Troughton, and I am going to introduce you to your panel moderator, Charles Martin. Charles, take it away.
Thank you, Stephen, and hi, everybody. I'm so thrilled to be at Chicago TARDIS this year. Thank you so much for attending, and of course, a happy birthday, sort of. It was actually March 20th, but 100 years of Patrick Troughton. It's a great occasion, and I'm so glad that we were able to remember him in the year of his birth. I'd like to start off by introducing our esteemed panel, starting off with Simon Baker, who's up the latest. He's over in the UK. Simon, say hi.
Good morning from the UK and good evening, Chicago.
And next up is Rob Levy.
Hello, how are you? Levy, but whatever, it works.
And then the amazing and longtime Who veteran, Larry Van Mersbergen.
Hello, it's great to be here. Thank you. Hello again, everyone.
Also, Stephen Pickering.
Hi, everyone. I miss you, especially you.
Yeah, that guy. Agreed.
That's a great shirt.
And finally, Emma Abraham. So nice. So nice
Hello.
to have you. I'd like to start this off a little bit unusually. I have a slideshow that I would like to share with you guys, and it's going to be a short one. We just want to bring you up to speed. For those of you who only know Patrick from Doctor Who, we'd like to give you a little bit of his past life. And at the end of that, then we'll start off talking about both our experiences with Patrick, and also we'd really like to hear any questions or comments from you. So be sure and put them in the Zoom chat if you would, please. And let's get started with 100 years of Patrick Troughton. So Patrick George Troughton was born on March 20th, 1920 in Mill Hill, Middlesex. His first known acting experience was in a school play called Bees on the Boat Deck in 1937 when he was 17 years old. Yeah, there we go. This is a picture, that's the earliest picture I could find of Pat, and this is him at age 16. So this is just before he started becoming an actor. He obviously got the bug because from there he attended the Embassy School of Acting in Swiss Cottage, where I've been actually. Then won a scholarship to work at the John Drew Memorial Theater in Long Island, New York, which his son Michael and a group of fans, and including myself, got to go to in 2017. That theater is still there. It's an amazing place. That's the inside of it, by the way. He left theater for a while when World War II broke out, becoming a lieutenant and commanding a motor gun boat out of Yarmouth, stopping enemy vessels from attacking. He was commended for his great leadership and courage, but he was known affectionately by his crew for his habit of wearing a tea cozy on his head as a hat in the North Atlantic Sea. Literally, that's a picture of Patrick with a tea cozy on his head. After the war, he returned to acting, and although he enjoyed theater and film and radio, all of which he was quite good at, there he is doing radio play, throughout his career, once he started getting cast on television, beginning in 1948, just 10 years after he had made his stage debut at school, it quickly became his favorite medium. His steely voice and his strong, dark looks helped him quickly get established as a dependable character actor, remarkably getting cast in Sir Laurence Olivier's Hamlet as the player king again in 1948. Big year for him. He also was in an action drama called Escape by Joseph Mankiewicz. And this is an interesting factoid. You know who else was in it? In fact, in the lead role? William Hartnell.
William Hartnell, yep.
There's a picture of William Hartnell and Pat Troughton together. They actually ran into each other again in another show called Dial 999, in which Pat was playing a hobo, and William Hartnell was busy getting shot at the time. So they didn't actually have any direct scenes together, but I have photoshopped together a little something to show you that's, yes. definitely. Pat would play a hobo quite a number of times in his life, which I find kind of funny. But anyway, so let's see. Finally, of course, the third time they met was also the last time they met in The Three Doctors, naturally. Oddly enough, this is interesting too. Pat also worked with two of his companions prior to them all being in Doctor Who. He was a guest on an episode of Deborah Watling's show, The Invisible Man, in 1958. There he is playing one of the, not a villain, but one of the other characters in the show. A great makeup job there. And he was also a guest on Fraser Hines' show, Smuggler's Bay, in 1964. There he goes. His pre-doctor credits are really extensive, and we don't have time for all of them, but there's a couple I would like to really single out. First of all, you may not know that he was the first Robin Hood on television.
Yes, he was. Yeah. Kind
of short for a Robin Hood, but hey, it wasn't like they shot it in a forest. So, but apparently he did quite well. Sadly, all of this stuff is lost. He was also Quilp in the Old Curiosity Shop. There he is. And that, again, is lost. And so is a drama that he referred to a number of times that he liked called Paul of Tarsus, about the Apostle Paul. He was the title character in 1960. Some of his notable film appearances before he got cast in Doctor Who include a teeny tiny itty bitty role, literally in one of the big fight scenes as Roach in Disney's Treasure Island. And he had more prominent featured roles in The Black Knight in 1952, Oliver's Richard III as Tyrell, the murderer. And, oh, did I spoil that? Oops. And, of course, many people will know that he was in Jason and the Argonauts as the prophet. And this was, it was quite, the first time I saw Jason the Argonauts, I did not recognize him at all until he started speaking. And then I knew. And he was also in a Hammer horror film called The Gorgon as Inspector Kanoff. So now that we've got you up to 1967, let's turn to the panel and ask you guys about your first time ever seeing Patrick Troughton, either in Doctor Who or not, and what attracted you to him as an actor. We'll start with Stephen.
Oh, pressure.
You're on.
First time I saw him was in Doctor Who, was in The Five Doctors, actually. And then not too long after that was at TARDIS 21 when I finally saw the War Games. That was a big moment because we didn't have Troughton episodes at that time, so it was like to see a Troughton episode was a big deal.
Indeed. How about Larry?
Oh yes, well, mine was at TARDIS 22, and that was the year later. I was a dealer at this convention, and this was just a chance happening in the lobby. It was Saturday morning, and I was just kind of taking in the snow, and this person passed right in front of me, and I did a double take, and I said, Mr. Troughton, and he turned around and he said, oh, hello, I was in my own world, and he shook my hand and said hello and said, what a blustery day, and all that, and he was just on his way to wherever, and I had a 4-minute conversation with him before his handler finally caught up with him and took him away to where he was going. But I thought I just met Patrick Troughton at this convention, and that was the first convention I saw the Crotons at 9:30 in the morning. And after that was over, he came out and did a commentary on the Croton. So he was standing in the middle of the audience with the microphone and just really enjoying the audience and saying that, well, none of you have seen me here before, so I don't know why you like me so much, but thank you. It was just an amazing experience. And it wasn't with us much longer after that, but it was just a moment I'll never forget.
Yeah, absolutely. Simon?
Okay, it was 1981, and BBC Two were rerunning the Five Faces of Doctor Who. Yes. And one of the stories they showed was the Three Doctors. Now, at this time, I was, of course, like most young people, even though I'm dressed like this, I was actually a child of the Tom Baker era, just to really confuse you. And so I was watching it because, of course, I'd heard that there were other doctors. I was watching the Three Doctors for John Pertwee because I knew John Pertwee as Wilson Gummidge. So when I found out he was Doctor Who as well, as far as I was concerned, this was the coolest man on the planet. And then suddenly, during episode 1 of the Three Doctors, this little pixie turned up. The second Doctor playing a recorder. Yeah. And I'm not quite sure what it is about him that appealed to me. It was around this time also that I was discovering my love of silent movie comedy, such as Laurel and Hardy and Charlie Chaplin as well. So maybe there was a connection. Maybe even at that very early age, I caught on to the fact that the Cosmic Homo was very Chaplin-esque.
Yeah. Well, and the wonderful interplay between Pertwee and Troughton, who actually got along very well in real life, but
yes,
at conventions and whatnot, they would play that up very, very well. Emma.
Well, the Three Doctors was also the first thing of Patrick's I saw at some convention in the early 80s, and I don't even remember what, sitting in somebody's room, and they played it for me, and I didn't know he did conventions or anything, and then a few months later, I worked guest liaison at Omnicon in Florida at the time, and I found out that my friend who actually knew Patrick Troughton, who I thought was trying to get him to Omnicon, actually had got him to say yes to Omnicon, but she couldn't go. So since she knew I worked it, she put my name in as his minder. So I met him for the first time as his minder, which was, in a way, horrifically scary, and in another way it was absolutely perfect because I got to meet the man, not the guy up on the stage, and he was wonderful, and I'm forever grateful that happened.
Yeah. And Rob, didn't want to leave you out.
So the first time I saw Troughton was our PBS station, ran the Five Doctors, so I saw that, and then we got the Pertwee package after. So then I saw Three Doctors. And I had already at that point, through Doctor Who magazine and the Target books, totally got enraptured by the second Doctor. So I was in even before I saw him on the screen. But then our PBS station in St. Louis was the first station to get the Hartnell Troughton package.
Yeah.
And I watched all of them. The night before I took the ACTs, they showed the War Games in its entirety all the way through.
Oh, dear.
I stayed up the entire night and watched the War Games. And I met him in St. Louis at a convention called Paradox in 1986. And then I saw him at TARDIS 22. Both times he was amazingly just lovely and fun. And when he was in St. Louis the last day of the convention, they had this pretty substantial blizzard. So like the turnout for the Sunday wasn't that big. And I couldn't decide what of my Target books I wanted signed. So there's like boxes. He's like, there's nobody here. Do you want them all signed? So I had him sign all that. And I had the novelization for The Omen, right? And he signed my novelization, The Omen, where his picture is. And there's a picture of the, of him getting stabbed in The Omen. And below his autographs, he goes, ouch, this really hurts. Which I thought was really great. And then, I had my Doctor Who Celebration book signed by Troughton and Pertwee at the same time. And so John signed it, then Patrick got it and was going to sign it. And he saw the picture of John and he drew like a really bad mustache on him. And he put, nobody likes him, Pat Troughton. Those are my Patrick Troughton stories. And he's always been my favorite Doctor. And it was just really great to have him be as warm and kind of fans as you wanted him to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I have a funny story about Pat Troughton. I happened to have been in England, I'm going to say 69. It must have been early 69. And I was a tiny, tiny child. But one of the people that I was friends with there said, "Oh, you probably enjoy this," and put on Doctor Who. First exposure to Doctor Who ever, didn't have any idea anything. And it was the Space Pirates. So I'm one of the people, I don't look it, but I'm old enough to have actually seen an actual transmitted episode of the Space Pirates, and I did not like it. It was probably in the middle of the story, and who knows? But it's not well remembered. Let's put it that way. So years and years and years later, now I'm in late high school, and my friend Kelvin Mead, who Emma may know through Omnicom.
Oh yeah.
He found a British. I was living in Miami. That's where Omnicom was. He found a British food store and bought an entire shoebox of Jelly Babies, and that is why I have diabetes today. But he said, have you ever seen Doctor Who? And I said, well, actually, yes. It was a long time ago. It was like some kiddie show. I didn't care for it. He was like, oh, no, sit down, shut up, eat these, and watch this. And he had one of the early Betamax players.
Ooh,
reference for Betamax. And he had taped some Tom Baker, which I was completely unaware of. I missed the whole Pertwee era as well. I had to go back later and catch up on all this. But he showed me Ark in Space. That was it. I was hooked. Banned for life. So a couple of years later, we managed to, at Omnicon probably, I met Patrick and got him to sign my book as well. And although we didn't have a chance to chat for too terribly long, I did get to tell him, since I had caught up on some of his other stuff outside of Doctor Who, I got a chance to tell him that I thought he was a real actor's actor. And he was like, oh, thank you. Very embarrassed. And so years later, I got to know John Pertwee pretty well. And John loved talking about Pat. So they really adored each other. So it's a very nice story. Now, next question for the panel. If you had to pick a story in Doctor Who that has Pat in it, which one do you think would make the best introduction to somebody who wasn't familiar? Because there's a lot of those fans out there who don't know Patrick's work. And I'm going to put one rule on it. We're not counting the 3 doctors or 5 doctors or the 2 doctors. It's got to be a black and white. All right. So Larry, why don't you start?
Well, one of my favorite Patrick Troughton episodes, which I think is a good introduction, is the Crotons. I think it's a great story. They arrive on a planet, they figure out something's wrong pretty fast, and you get to explore the characters pretty quickly. And you really honestly don't need to know anything about Doctor Who to follow the story, except, right. You might ask about the TARDIS or all this stuff, but that wasn't really central to the plot of the story. And I just thought I've seen it over and over again. It's just a really nice story. And I thought, if you're going to introduce Pat, he kind of hits all of the different elements in that story where he's all calm, and he's and at one point where he gets really excited about, I'm pressing the button, I can do this, that kind of thing. So it's just and plus that was one of the few stories that didn't get destroyed. So it's been around for a while. And I thought, the other one, if it had been complete, would be the Invasion, which, brings him to Earth and deals with UNIT, kind of foreshadowing the Purple Years.
Yeah,
very memorable story. And I know that one's on the list for animation somewhere down the line to finish those up. But yeah, those are the 2 I like as far as introduction.
Stephen, how about you?
I'll start by bringing in a story. If this were a normal weekend and we weren't all sequestered with a pandemic, my daughter would be with us and we'd be in Lombard. As it is, she's in Boston, and she was texting me as she's watching the convention and telling me that she's in Boston with her roommate and her roommate's brother, and they were watching Doctor Who on Pluto TV, and they happened to be running a bunch of Troughton episodes today. So they were running Tomb of the Cybermen, and her roommate had seen a little bit of Doctor Who. Her roommate's brother was familiar with Doctor Who, but had never seen it. Afterward, he was like, where do I see more episodes? So he's instantly hooked, and it was on Troughton, which I think is amazing.
Great.
He has that effect. As far as I would say, a good intro would be the Mind Robber. Just because it is a very magical episode. And again, you don't have to know a lot about Doctor Who to come in, and it just blows your mind and takes you to another place right away, but gives you a good feel for the characters and how how much they can mess with the characters as the story unfolds, which is actually a good introduction to the show in general. So I would say,
yeah, that first episode is completely what the is going on. Rob?
Well, Larry stole mine, so now I have to go to Plan C. But the problem is, you can't really have a bad Patrick Troughton one.
The Space Pirates, but maybe.
Well, unlike some people, I haven't seen it, which I would love to. I mean, I would love to just see if it's an episode.
I would love to see it again.
If we all thought Enemy of the World was going to be terrible, but who knows? I mean, I would love to see anything, even if it's considered terrible, that's missing. But anyway, I would go with anything from the monster season, and so I guess I would. Although Crotons is everything Larry says, it's like condensed and easy. There's something about Tomb of the Cybermen that outside of Doctor Who works as a horror story. I mean, continuity and sort of weird plot stuff aside, it pulls on some basic elements of horror and monster storytelling that I think a lot of other people can catch on to real quick. And he's very good. He's got his moments of whimsy, but he's also very good at framing that this is really, really scary stuff in that I really like. And I think that he's just I kind of think that right around then is when he was kind of hitting his stride with figuring out where he wanted to go with the role and how he wanted to do it and frame it and shape it. So that's kind of where my head is. I also think, although making somebody watch 6-parters out of the box is tricky, I think he's great in the Ice Warriors.
Yeah.
I agree.
Those are kind of my two back end. And Larry, you're completely right on yours.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Let's go to Emma.
Somebody's going to have to help me with an episode title because my brain has gone blank. It's the one where they're on the space station, and pardon?
Moonbase or Seeds of Death?
Wheel in Space.
Moonbase. It's Moonbase, isn't that the one where they get the?
Very good choice.
I think Moonbase, because it's a familiar theme. A bunch of people on a moon base and something goes wrong, and how do you get out of it? So it starts off being familiar, so you're comfortable with it, even though you've never seen Doctor Who. But then it goes into Doctor Who, and things that are so Patrick, like figuring things out, but also the companions have things to do in that one. Everybody gets to have a moment where they figure something out or where they save somebody else, and nobody's just there as well. They're not usually, but nobody's there as just baggage or the person to scream. I just watched that again last night, unfortunately, with like 17 other episodes, so they all started to blur together. But I just, like I said, it's on the one hand, it's familiar. It's a place we've gone in a lot of science fiction things. On the other hand, it becomes Doctor Who.
Yeah. Yep. Let's see, Rob then.
I already answered
sorry. I'm sorry. I meant Simon.
Don't scare me.
I could be cruel and say, show them the Space Pirates, because if they'll sit through that, they'll sit through anything.
Is it really that bad? Wow.
There's a reconstruction of the Space Pirates if you really like to see it, and it's pretty good as the reconstruction goes.
I just
when I watched that again, I noticed that there was a big plot twist in the episode that I must not have seen that I quite liked, but they tell you the story at the very beginning. I mean, they tell you who the villain is at the very, very beginning of the thing, and I just thought, this is dumb. But anyway, I'm sorry. Simon, go ahead.
If I did have to choose one, I would actually say go with Power of the Daleks, because we're all going through that journey together of discovering who Patrick Troughton's Doctor is. In fact,
and you don't find out much.
Well, you can sort of watch this wonderful animation, because of course in episode 1, Ben and Polly, the companions, they don't know who he is. He doesn't even refer to himself in the first person.
Right.
He'll say, like, the Doctor was a great collector, wasn't he? So he's not entirely sure he's the Doctor. And then by episode 3 or 4, he knows he's the Doctor, and already you're getting those little Troughton moments. There's a lovely bit in episode 4 where he says to somebody, "Oh, that's a nice uniform you've got on," and you think, "Yeah, that's it. The second Doctor has arrived."
Yeah,
so,
true.
He would say, "I what was the line? I would like a hat like that."
Yes,
he keeps saying that.
You know, Fraser Hines always said that the Highlanders was when he thought his persona came out, and he said that it was a crying shame that none of that is around. But he said when he was working with Patrick on that show, of course, he didn't know he was going to continue after that. But he said that he really when he was looking at the character, he thought, looking back, he said that's when he established himself in that episode.
There is also a reconstruction of the Highlanders, and I highly recommend it. Not only is it really good, but you get to find out that Polly takes the lead completely in that.
Yes, she does. Yeah.
She is a very powerful character. All of that screaming dolly bird kind of thing just flies right out the window. Sadly, in the very next episode, not so much. But you know, anyway, I'm gonna sort of cheat. I think the one I would recommend to people is the Faceless Ones, because it is just now available as an animated story.
Very good story.
And the quality seems like it's pretty good. I'm really looking forward to the completing not the Abominable Snowman, but the other one,
Web of Fear.
Not Web of Fear.
But yeah, I think the Faceless Ones is a fantastic story. I absolutely love Ben and Polly in that, and I think most of it is complete, right? Trying to remember.
The Faceless
but we now have a DVD that completes it with animation. So
yeah, there's two live episodes. The rest are animated. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going with that one as my choice. Very good. Do we have any? Okay, we don't have any comments yet, but we welcome your questions and your comments. Before we move on, I'd like to also mention, or I'd like to ask the panel another question, and that is, have you seen? I would like any memories that you have of Patrick Troughton in shows that were not Doctor Who that you might have seen. So we'll start with Simon here.
Okay, well, it's very fortunate because we're just about to start watching it again. In 1984, I think it wasn't one of his last major roles. Maybe I said that last bit. He appeared in The Box of Delights.
Yes.
BBC effects at the time, it's groundbreaking. It's wonderful, and of course, it's set at Christmas. The last episode takes place on Christmas Eve, and so we actually will watch that every Christmas. We try to make sure we watch the last episode on Christmas Eve. He's just magical in it. I think he's actually only in for about 3 episodes, but even though he's on it, he has a presence all the way through. And so please, if you get a chance, watch it. You will be amazed. I mean, obviously, this is 1984, so okay, we can look at it now and say maybe some of the special effects are not quite as good as what we can achieve now, but it is just spellbinding. And I remember watching it when I was 9 years old, and I've been in love with it ever since.
Yeah, it's a true holiday great. Rob?
Obviously The Omen, because I didn't know ahead of time he was going to be in it, and I'm like, wait a minute. So that was cool. And I think it was good to see him get like a big part in a movie that was pretty all over the world. Also Jason and the Argonauts, because I like you did not recognize him right away. I think his episode of Space 1999 is really fun, and I'm a big fan of that. So that's mine.
Emma?
The only thing I can think of that hasn't been mentioned is Foxy Lady, which he had a recurring role on. And just what really struck me was him being a contemporary, a modern person, because most of what I had seen him in was either science fiction or historical. So just seeing him in that context was interesting.
Neat. Cool. I don't think I've seen that. I'm going to have to go look that up now. Larry, how about you?
Well, there's 2 roles I want to mention. They were both one-offs in each series, but the first one was the very first episode of Inspector Morse. He plays a pervert voyeur who's got the binoculars across and he's a person of interest. But then another character on the original All Creatures Great and Small, he plays a farmer named Roddy, who is a real prominent character in this one episode. He's got this big mangy beard and that, but he's lifting up lambs and doing all and really having a great interaction with the main characters and just showing the diversity of things he could do. And those are the two roles that just pop right out of my head as far as outside, like that's Patrick Troughton. And of course, working with Peter Davison on All Creatures Great and Small, I saw a clip of both of them on Blue Peter promoting the Five Faces of Doctor Who, and also being on that show together. And John Nathan Turner was the producer of that show.
Right. Yes. Stephen.
Oh boy. Really outside of Jason and the Omen, I haven't seen a lot of Patrick outside of the only thing I can think of him not playing the Doctor was in Enemy of the People, where he played Salamander as well. But it was a brilliant performance. I thought
Enemy of the World,
fantastic.
but yes.
Or Enemy of the World. Thank you. It was brilliant. I thought it was just a fantastic performance, especially when you consider how they were shooting that and how he had to do quick changes, much like live theater, and switch characters so fast. And before watching it, my only familiarity was the Target novelization. So I was pleasantly surprised when I saw how much better the TV episode was.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Now we've gotten a question from Anna. How do you feel the animations have done with capturing the essence of Pat Troughton, since he had a very physical aspect to the way he played the Doctor? If you don't mind, I'm going to start with my answer first in this occasion. And that is, so far, I love the animated episodes. I am so grateful that our show is deemed worthy of restoring missing episodes with the animation, but the animation has been done by different companies, and therefore it's not always fantastic. But so for the most part, they've captured Pat's face pretty well, but your physical movements, no, no, that would break the budget. Now, having said that, I am really looking forward to watching the faceless ones, not the faceless one, the new one that's just come out, finishing up the invasion, because the animation on that looks terrific. So I'm very pleased about that, and I hope that seems like he gets to move around more. People actually walk in this animation, which is unusual. So let's start with Emma.
I've only seen a handful of the animated ones, but compared to what we had before then, where they put the existing audio track over still photos, the animation is, and I thought that was fine. I was happy to see it however I could see it. So I was fine with hearing the words over still photos. But I find the animation just pulls me into it so much more, even though I didn't expect it to. I've been fine with the animated ones I've seen.
Okay. Rob.
So I'm going to take this in a completely weird angle. I'm fine, like she said, I'm pretty satisfied with most of the animation. I didn't love it in the Moonbase. Power I thought was better. Macra Terror I thought was much more of an improvement, and I'm kind of really looking forward to seeing what they're doing. The thing that I love that they have managed to do with the animation is, no matter how bad the animation is, it does away, when you watch the stills, it doesn't really do this justice. But Troughton was really great at bringing different vocal inflections to his parts to convey sort of his doctor's whimsy, but then concern, and his back and forth. So I think having a visual, like a moving visual, almost like a silent film, like Simon mentioned, almost sort of a visual companion to that. It almost does work as a silent film, but with talking, which I know is kind of dumb. I think that sort of gives that part of his performance a little better. Now, if you didn't have that way of understanding sort of the where's he going to go next kind of attitude of his doctor through his voice, you'd be completely lost. So that does make up for some of it. But yes, I think you do lose a lot in none of the mannerisms and things.
Yeah. He acted a lot with his face as well, and they do their best with it, but he's really kind of hard to capture. It's a real rubber face. And
he does a lot with not talking too, which is awesome.
Yeah. True.
Yeah, I will agree. And I will echo Emma. I'd much rather have them than not, because we get to enjoy these episodes, whereas we wouldn't, except for the telesnaps and the audio restorations. But it has been hit and miss. I powered the Daleks, just it looked like two-dimensional paper dolls with like the little rivets in the joints kind of thing, and just didn't work for me as well. Macra Terror I actually thought was one of the better ones as far as capturing the physicality, but I think it is really, really hard to do. So I give them credit for, and I'm eager to see the new Power of the Daleks deluxe edition. I haven't seen that yet.
They seem to have improved the animation there.
The clips I've seen look much better, so I will actually watch that, and I'm sure I will enjoy that more. But it is hard. It's hit and miss, but I'd much rather have them than not.
And Larry.
Well, just a point, the Macra Terror I thought was the best one so far as capturing Patrick. But when you were talking about his rubber face, I always think of that scene in The Seeds of Death when he pops out of the foam and the bubble's getting there and he goes, but he's holding his breath, and he just has this really good way of doing his face. But yeah, they're getting better. And like you said, different, I remember a couple of years ago, I was on a panel about animations and we talked about this different companies doing it. And finally the BBC should have bought a company and did it that way. But I'm hoping that when they get to the next couple that they've announced, that they'll get even better, because the sales are doing really well, and they were, hopefully that'll pick up the animation. But Macra Terror was really good, and Fraser even told me that he said that the animation for Macra Terror was better than the real thing. He says, you should have seen the rubber monsters they had. He's like, this was so much scarier than what we were working with back then, and he enjoyed it thoroughly. So
the Macra Terror, the real one, the Lost episode, the monster was so bad that the firm that created it got fired from doing Doctor Who. And Simon, we didn't get to you.
No. Well, for the record, I'm looking forward to seeing Evil of the Daleks, which I think is rude.
Yeah. Yep. That's on the list. Yeah.
At some point, and again, they've all got their merits. Some I like more than others. I take your point about Power of the Daleks, but again, this has been touched upon already. What I miss about the animation is Patrick Troughton's expressions. There's a direction we're often given when acting is to show your thought process. Whatever character you're playing, you've got to have logic. There's got to be a reason by what you're doing. And with Patrick Troughton, you found that you could see the wheels were turning. Everything the Doctor did, there was always a reason, even if the reason was he wasn't quite sure what he was going to do next. You could see the thought process, and that's what animation could never recapture. But again, it's a way of bringing these stories alive in the same way that the Target novelizations, they adapt the story. And if you enjoy the animation as well, great. It gives us those stories in one form or another.
Mm-hmm.
I do find that the animations keep you more engaged than reconstructions, but for a long time, the reconstructions were the best we had. And so, outfits like Loose Cannon, later on, they even started adding computer animation to some of them to try and improve them. And they did a tremendous fan service, for all those great stories. Now, I've been saving this question towards the end, as we're getting towards the end already. And that is, now we asked earlier about a good introduction story for Pat Troughton, but what's your personal favorite story? We'll start with Rob.
Oh, man.
You got to pick just one.
I know. Can I just say all of them? Oh, man. I really love The Invasion. It really just does a lot. The dynamic with him and Nick, and him and Fraser in The Invasion, I think is just wonderful. So rather than like thinking about this and overthinking it, I'm just going to go with that. And
let's say Emma.
Enemy of the World. I know that's an obvious choice, but I really love him playing the two parts, and I especially love him as Salamander. I just think that's a fantastic performance, to be able to play an entirely different character in a format that you already have a character in. Can't be that easy, and I love him in that.
Yeah, okay. Larry.
My personal favorite Patrick Troughton story will be The Invasion. I absolutely think it's a great story. It not only just gets you ready for the Pertwee era with Unit, but Nicholas Courtney was great. John Levine was in there, and just a great story on Cybermen at St. Paul's Cathedral. Come on, you gotta love it. But that was a great story, a good 8-parter, and I saw it with Telesnaps originally with the missing episodes, and it was just a very riveting story.
Simon?
I would say the Ice Warriors. Because this is a
strong contender.
Where Troughton's doctor just says to Fraser Hines as Jamie, well, he didn't get there by Shetland pony. It said to Christmas. I don't know why that story. I always felt that if they did a story where the 13th Doctor met the second Doctor. Now, I always took the view that if the second Doctor met the 13th Doctor, he wouldn't show any surprise.
Right.
Yes, I was right down to that one. And so I'm going off on a tangent here. I like the idea of the 13th Doctor arriving in the Antarctic, rubbing off an ice block and seeing an ice warrior inside, and suddenly this voice behind her goes, oh dear, we are in trouble, aren't we? Just as well I turned up. And then out the distance, you have whoever was playing the second Doctor. I'm available, by the way. Having the hearing, and then the camera just cuts to the actor, and there it is saying, introducing so-and-so as the second Doctor.
Yes.
That's the Christmas special that is yet to be made. But anyway, I'm sorry, as I said, I was just fancy there.
That's all right.
Larry, your favorite.
I already went. So.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Who did I miss? Did I miss somebody?
Steven.
Me. Oh, I missed Steven. Sorry, Steven.
That's all right. No, it's cool. I keep hoping that my favorite one is one that will still yet to be found, and I haven't seen it yet. Because I keep hoping they will find the ones they're missing. But up until then, I'm going to go with Emma. Enemy of the World is just, as an actor, the acting is phenomenal in it. And again, because they shot it almost as live theater with the quick changes, it's a marvel to watch. And it impresses me every time. The pacing is wonderful, but the acting is so good.
Yeah. I'm going to have to go with the War Games for exactly those same reasons. Tremendous acting throughout, and it's because it's such a long story. It's really a sprint, but amazingly, for a story that Terrence Dix and his co-author were just writing as they went. Yeah, Malcolm Hulk. As for that kind of, well, we suddenly have to fill 6 more weeks than we thought we did. Kind of thing. They managed to put in the best twist ending that I've ever seen. To this day, that moment where Patrick finally realizes he's got to call in the Time Lords, introducing the Time Lords, and then takes a deck of cards and turns it into a thing, and then we suddenly completely shift gears. The Time Lords take care of everything, and now he's on trial. Boom! After 8 weeks, we're suddenly in a completely different story, and it was quite amazing. We had a question from Facebook about where do you find these reconstructions? Hands up, anybody who wants to answer that one's loose cannon, but
I can tell you a lot of them are on YouTube if you do the right searches. In fact, many of them are there. I remember sharing the Feast of Stephen with Peter Purvis because he's never seen it, and so many of those reconstructions are out there. They're fan made, and sometimes they get taken down, but a lot of times they pop back up, and a Google search should find those for you.
Yeah, especially if you use the term loose cannon.
Loose cannon, yes.
Yeah. There were some other reconstructions made by other people, but I think the most consistent group.
Those are the best ones. Yeah.
Loose cannon. Yeah. The one last thing I want to bring up, I've got a few more slides to share with you at the end here, but I want to mention one thing that is kind of sad. But as you all know, Pat Troughton died while he was attending a convention.
Yes.
Magnum Opus Con in 1987. I was working in my college newspaper at the time, and somebody came in and told me that he passed away, and I was like, okay, I'm in the middle of putting a newspaper together. I got to lock the door, got to write the obituary, and then we'll get back to work. So they gave me an hour and let me write the obituary, which was really nice. But the thing that kills me is that the day before his untimely passing, he had been warned not to go to the convention by his doctors because he had a heart condition at this point in his life. But he went anyway, and he participated very fully in the convention up to that point. And one of the things that he was especially keen on that was going to happen the next day was they were going to show the Dominators, and he had not seen it in at least however long, if ever. So he was extremely keen to see it, and he never got to. Very sad. Okay, I've got just enough time to share a few slides with you, so I would like to share a couple more slides, if you don't mind. And if you know who it is, if you know which role he has, shout it out. Anybody recognize him there?
Oh, yeah.
There he is.
Kasgar is the name of the character.
Oh, okay.
In Sinbad and the Eye of the Tiger. That's the second Sinbad movie he's been in, for those of you taking note. It's not the best one. The best one was, the other one that he was in. Anybody know this one? I've forgotten the name of the character, but it's Little Women. It's the BBC's adaptation of Little Women. And that is the most fabulous wig he ever had in his entire career, in my opinion. How about this one? Anyone? That's Clove from Scars of Dracula. Oh. This one everybody should know.
The Omen.
The Omen. And there's the Box of Delights. Special for Simon.
Thank you. Yeah.
Since I've got 2 minutes, I've got to show you these wonderful pictures. This is from, I think, TARDIS 22.
Yes.
And this is a lovely picture. There's Lalla Ward, John Pertwee, Peter Davison, Colin Baker, and Pat Troughton. This was an incredibly rare assembly of doctors.
Yes.
And as you can see from this picture, very early on in the panel, Pertwee and Troughton swapped jackets. So that's Pat wearing Pertwee's jacket, trying to block Peter from being seen, as he was wont to do. And here, he was pretending to be Pertwee, and him were doing a ventriloquist act. Right. And at some point, Colin got up and just put his hand over Pat's mouth. That's enough.
We're allowed to meet up again. I can tell you, we are going to be recreating that photo.
Oh, good. I want to thank all of my panelists. You guys were terrific. And I really enjoyed sharing our memories of Pat Troughton. I encourage everybody to go out and find the little bits and pieces and surviving TV shows and movies that he did. There's a lot of great stuff out there. Just because he was rarely the leading man, you just go and you're watching this movie, you're enjoying it, you go, hey. And of course, the great animated episodes, the reconstructions, and classic Doctor Who. We're so lucky to have as much Patrick Troughton left as we did. All right, I think we're at time, so I'm going to let Anna turn it over, or whoever. Is anyone? Are we unsupervised?
No, you're not.
Damn.
That's all I want.
So thank you, Charles. Thank you, everybody. It was a great panel. And coming up next at 9 o'clock, we have a panel on Doctor Who horror. So the scary episodes of Doctor Who, which I think, jumping right from Patrick Troughton, who was a Hammer regular, into Doctor Who horror is a perfect fit. So make sure you stick around for that, or come back for that, or check it out. And until then, forward, Doctor